Show that the roots of the equation x squared minus a minus 1x plus 2 times a minus 1 squared equal to 0 are real for all a values that are an element of the real number set, and express these roots in terms of a. If a is an element of z, the integer set, show that the roots of the equations are integers. So to show that the roots are real, we simplify b squared minus 4ac and explain why it cannot be negative. This is usually based on the fact that a perfect square cannot be negative. So I'm going to write out my equation again over here and label it a, b, and c. So the number in front of the x squared is 1. So a is equal to 1. The expression in front of the x is minus bracket a minus 1 bracket. So this entire thing in yellow is equal to b. And then what's left over at the end with no x value attached is our c value. So that's minus 2 bracket a minus 1 bracket squared. So this entire thing here is our c value. So for the given equation, b squared minus 4ac, we're going to swap the b for minus bracket a minus 1 bracket, and that's going to be squared. Bring over the minus, bring over the 4, and then we have a, which is just 1, so it's going to be 1 with brackets around it. And then c is stuck on, so we're going to multiply c, which is going to be minus 2 bracket a minus 1 bracket squared. So then working out minus a minus 1 squared over here, it's minus bracket a minus 1 bracket multiplied by minus bracket a minus 1 bracket. So a minus by minus is a plus, and a minus 1 times a minus 1 is a minus 1 squared. So then this becomes this. Let me bring it down here. So plus bracket a minus 1 squared is technically plus 1 bracket a minus 1 squared. So I'm going to stick a 1 in there in red. Okay, so then 4 by 1 by 2 is 8, and a minus by plus by a minus is a plus. So we end up with plus 8, and that's stuck on to the a minus 1 squared. So notice that we have the same thing in each set of brackets. So we have a minus 1 squared and a minus 1 squared. So we have 1 of them, and then we have 8 of them, and 1 plus 8 is 9. So we end up with 9 times a minus 1 squared. And no matter what we would substitute in place of the a, we will always get an answer that is greater or equal to 0. So for this equation, b squared minus 4ac is greater or equal to 0 for all a values that are an element of the real number set. Thus, the roots of the equation are real for all a values element of the real number set. So the roots of the equation are given by x is equal to, and we're going to use our minus b formula or a quadratic formula, minus b, which is going to be minus a minus 1. So remember, b is equal to minus bracket a minus 1 bracket. So since we've got minus b, and there's already a minus there, it's going to be minus minus. Bring over the plus minus, the square root, and we already worked out b squared minus 4ac to be 9 times a minus 1 squared, so we just stick that in underneath the root, and that's all divided by 2 multiplied by a, and remember the a is 1, so 2 multiplied by 1 would be 2. So then we're going to simplify. Well, minus multiplied by minus would give a plus. So we're just going to have a minus 1. Bring over the plus minus. And then the square root of 9 will be 3. And the square root of a minus 1 squared will just be a minus 1. Because the root and the squared part cancel each other out. And that's still divided by 2. Then separating this out into one equation where we have a plus and one where we have a minus. And we're going to label the a minus 1 as 1 times a minus 1 in both equations. So we have 1 times a minus 1 plus 3 times a minus 1, and 1 plus 3 is 4 times a minus 1. And then over here we have 1 times a minus 1 minus 3 times a minus 1, and 1 minus 3 is minus 2 times a minus 1. So we have 4 times a minus 1 still divided by 2, and minus 2 times a minus 1 still divided by 2. So now we can simplify. What will divide into 4 that will also divide into 2? Well, 2 will divide into both of them. 4 divided by 2 is 2, and 2 divided by 2 is 1. So you get 2 multiplied by a minus 1 over 1, which is 2 multiplied by a minus 1. And then on the other side we have minus 2 and 2. What will divide into both of them? Well, 2 will divide into both of them. So minus 2 divided by 2 is minus 1, and 2 divided by 2 is 1. So we get minus 1 times a minus 1 over 1, which is minus times a minus 1. So x is equal to 2 times a minus 1, or x is equal to minus times a minus 1. And if a is an element of z, so if these a values here are elements of the integer set, positive or negative whole numbers, then 2 times a minus 1 and minus times a minus 1 are both integers. Hence, the roots of the equation are integers. So in order to work out this question, it's very, very important that we learn off by heart that to show that roots of an equation are real, the b squared minus 4ac cannot be negative. And this is based on the fact that a perfect square cannot be negative. And that is because a plus by a plus will give you a plus, and a minus by minus will also give you a plus.